welcome to Your Next Chapter, where we spotlight the creators shaping the future of podcasting. I'm Jeremiah Tittle, CEO of Next Chapter Podcasts. We're now turning our attention to how live events are shaping this next chapter of the podcast industry. As someone dreaming up my own podcast event in my current home of Ibiza, I'm excited to sit down with others in the industry to explore what's possible when audio meets real life connection. My guest today is Giles Gear, founder of Cheerful Earful, an international comedy podcast festival that takes place across 3 continents every October. A huge undertaking. Excited to ask Giles about that. He's also the operations director at South Mill Arts Center in Hertfordshire and the founder of Giddy Aunt Comedy, which produced the first ever The Rest is Politics live show. That's saying a lot among other live podcasting events. Giles, welcome to Your Next Chapter.
Thank you very much for having me. It's great. You know my CV better than I know it, so I need to sort of bring you around with me. Yeah, it's great. It's very exciting to chat things through and to chat all things live events. And I always say with the amazing guys at Goalhanger and what they've built, doing the first ever Rest is Politics live show, really should have organised a better contract with them. I think I really should have sort of got onto that bandwagon for the rest of eternity. But hey, we live and learn.
I guess so. The Rest is brand is one of those franchises you look at, or I've looked at from afar, but you saw them in the early days. I mean, it's very impressive what they've built.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Let's talk about you. How did you first fall in love with comedy? Kind of want to start at the beginning, if you're cool with that.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, I fell in love with comedy as a good old defense mechanism to avoid people commenting on the size of my ears, and ears will be a recurring motif in basically all of my professional life. No, I love comedy. I mean, I grew up on a diet of Blackadder and Fawlty Towers and all these kinds of thing. And I think that I was very lucky in the UK. I mean, everywhere, but in the UK, we have a absolutely wealth of brilliant like student radio. And, you know, you've got loads of national broadcasters and your Greg James and all this lot that have come from student radio. And I sort of spent my 3 years at uni basically on air rather than doing any decent essays. And I sort of thought, actually, I want to try and carve a career out of this. And then back then in the old days, dare I say, like sort of 10 years ago or so, you could fairly easily get a gig in radio. It was a bit like what podcasting was now, albeit on the decline. There were way more jobs in radio, and podcasting wasn't a thing. It was just like on demand, radio shows basically. So got myself a gig there and always tried to infuse and inject any of the radio that I was doing with humor and with comedy. And we were very lucky that at the time I was working for a brand called Jack, which is much bigger in North America. I think still exists in North America, but was fairly new in the UK, which was sort of like the Dave TV of radio, where humor and voiceovers and comedy writing was baked in and built into basically after every song, there would be something that would hopefully raise a smile kind of thing. And yeah, I just love it. And I sort of pushed humor and entertainment into my day job and my own business where possible. And Giddy Aunt, which is the limited company, the sort of umbrella behind Cheerful and all of those ventures, but the sort of proper production company behind it, was born out of, I want to try and trial mad creative ideas, and some of them might work and some of them might not work, and that's great. And I sort of wanted to own my own IP, not that I've got any, and wanted to just try fun ideas. And so we've had Brian Blessed on a boat cruise on the River Thames a few times. We did a Tui Theroux, which was a Louis Theroux show where he was interviewed by a comedian doing a Louis Theroux impression. And it was doing those shows and understanding how live events work and operate from every side of the circle. And we all know circles have got lots of sides. That I was sort of, that was when I sort of thought, actually, my love of audio and podcasts, I was like, I don't think there's a place for a festival for comedy and entertainment podcasts to come together under one roof, to my knowledge. So let's give it a go. That is an incredibly potted history. I'm happy to go back and expand in granular detail on all of my lectures at uni and student radio, but I genuinely, I think there's tons of people, particularly in the UK, working in media or creative industries that will have learn what they've learned from student radio. And I was at Nottingham at URN, and it was almost this historic success. So you were always too scared to drop the ball on previous years. And so we were just learning how to edit, how to produce, how to self-manage, how to operate, technical and everything. Like what's an XLR cable and all this stuff that is so transferable to when I worked in my day job in podcasts as well.
So I wanted to ask you about a question that is a jumping off point, I think, for a little bit of a minor philosophical debate, because I've had not an argument, but two sides of the coin with our production director, Pete, who I believe you met at Adweek in New York City, because he's a stand-up comedian, belongs to a comedy troupe in Washington, D.C. We've talked about whether or not comedians are the perfect match for podcasting. I've always felt like they are, because they're so good at self-promotion and selling, promoting their events. So being on a podcast, promoting with a live read, an ad or something to that effect, an advertisement. So that's kind of my side of the coin. His side of the coin is that comedians are flaky, don't show up, and and maybe it just depends on the circles you run in or what have you. I'm not sure. What your take is on that. The question that is written for me by our executive producer, Emily Reeves, shout out, is when did you first discover that podcasting was a great opportunity for comedians?
When I was working on national radio and for a radio station that brought in a lot of comedy and entertainment into its output, I think we all like a giggle. We all like a laugh. I think that that obviously true crime and tons of other genres, history and all of these are, I think, potentially what comedy or entertainment does, which doesn't diminish it, but it's a low lift, as a phrase I've learned from my American cousins. It's like I couldn't start a podcast on the Battle of Waterloo and I would get a fact wrong immediately, but a comedian can do a podcast called Me and My Pigeon and just talk about how many pigeons they've seen that day, and it actually might find an audience and grow. So I think that they're a great vehicle for original, funny, simple ideas. I think obviously now we're veering into a world of visualized podcasts and stadium tours, but again, not that long ago, a good idea and a mobile phone kind of thing would be enough. And I think that people love laughing. People like funny things. We like having our headphones on the tube and having a giggle. And so I think that the podcasting popped up as a great vehicle for these comedians, especially in the UK market, who weren't getting TV commissions and TV gigs, who couldn't necessarily jump on a UK wide tour, but both social media and then having a podcast adds to their ways. That it's like buy the t-shirt, see them do a live show, listen to their podcast, and so allows them to own their ideas, I think. And some comedians have waited quite a while before launching a podcast because they wanted to nail a format and nail a nice idea as well, which is really interesting. We're sort of a few years ago, I suppose, a comedian had the idea first and would do it, and now production companies are potentially being a bit more like, let's get a big name comedian, pick a format and visualize it, and off we go, kind of thing. And neither's right or wrong. It's just very interesting, which is not actually your question.
No, that's great. And then just the last question before I want to get into Cheerful Earful, I wanted to ask you one more kind of big picture about comedy and podcasting. How does the market feel right now? You sort of started to answer it at the tail end there, because I think early on, indie comedians, if you want to call that, or maybe smaller footprint following comedians, had the greater opportunity maybe than they do now. Does it feel like the market is kind of, what would you say? It's kind of like what is happening with the global economy and the condensing of centralization of power. What a bad analogy. I'm sorry for this.
I think it's easy to be cynical and go, oh, everyone's visual podcast and it's all tons of money behind it and there's no space anymore for indie or smaller. Now, it's not just a plug, but like everything we do at Cheerful, we give the same amount of love and support and everything to the indie podcasters, to first time performers as well. Kind of thing. We give the sort of stage to podcasts of every level. And I've been proved wrong multiple times where I've booked a big name, inverted commas for audio listeners, big name comedian. And then we've booked a sort of more indie one. And the indie one has sold, 3 times as quick as the big name. Wow. And I was like, well, okay, really? Cool. I know nothing. Because I always think that if you've got 100 people who absolutely adore your podcast and listen to it, and each one of those 100 people buys the t-shirt, subscribes to your Patreon, goes to your live show, subscribes to the podcast, tells a friend, that is immensely more valuable than your 100,000 listens and you do a live show and you sell 40 tickets and you go, well, where's that come from, kind of thing. So I think that I genuinely think there's this beautiful, still creative space. And if a funny person, not even a comedian, has got an idea and they want to do that idea. I mean, the pigeon one, I've already forgotten the name, but if they want to do the pigeon one, for example, then just do it. Because yes, in the world of riversides and all these, there's ways that you can do it for free / very little money. And if it's a fun format, people will find it and come for it, absolutely. Come back for it, I'll say. You know what I meant. I didn't want to make an overtly weird comment, but they'll absolutely be there for it and embrace it, I think. I mean, pub quiz podcast that we had in the UK, or Pottervision. Pottervision is 2 comedians in the UK. I'm sure they won't mind me saying, not household names, but their podcast is every episode they reread a chapter of Harry Potter in chronological order and riff on it. And it was one of the fastest selling shows of last year's festival and was hilarious and brilliant. And, that for me just shows that when funny people or funny formats can still make noise in this, like you say, globalized corporate-y, let's make a podcast world.
I love that. That's phenomenal. And you really helped me transition into the Cheerful Earful part of the conversation. Just wanted to start with, how'd you come up with the idea for the festival?
Basically, in the UK, to my knowledge, there were tons and tons of festivals, comedy festivals for stand-ups, like the Leicester and Edinburgh one and Brighton and Camden Fringe are brilliant. And there were a few podcasty events and conferences, lots of awards, not many festivals that time. You didn't have Crossed Wires. I think you had the London Podcast Festival, but you didn't have many. But there wasn't a out-and-out festival or a collection of funny podcasts. And so I think the name came, again, as all good ideas, came from childhood bullying, and Cheerful Earful kind of sums up what it is. It's your favorite funny podcasts all in one place. You are getting an earful of podcasts that will hopefully make you cheerful. Ed Gamble has gone on record saying it's a terrible name. He said that live on his Radio X show, which is great, but all promotion is good promotion. And I was just very lucky the first year, 2022, that I reached out to podcasters and comedians, big and small, and said, hey, this is an idea. I've got nothing to show for it. Got no images, got nothing. Apart from a venue and a platform and everything and a stage, and would you be up for it? And you had people like Richard Herring and Birthday Girls and Pappies and Trusty Hogs. So some pretty legacy podcasts going like, hell yeah, we'll get involved. And so it was a handful of 4 days, a handful of shows in some London pubs that supported us from day zero, kind of thing. The Bedford pub in Balham, which is absolutely beautiful. And I said, look, I want to do this. And it was like, yeah. And it was just a case of having the idea, can we do it for free? I.e., I don't have any investment to put into it. How can we possibly try and build it for free? No investment, no sort of hidden offshore accounts. It was just an idea. Let's make it happen. And it worked, and audiences came out for it. And, the festival's cut of that meant we could reinvest and do it again and do it bigger, kind of thing. And again, very, very lucky that I think almost from year one, from sort of day one, Goldie and Craig at Adalicious sponsored it for not much money. I'm sure they wouldn't mind me saying, but they could see the idea. They were like, yeah, we get this, kind of thing. And in that first year, I don't think it is anymore, but in that first year, there was so much value for them because they came, saw live shows, ones that they liked that weren't on their network. They said, hey, do you want to join our network? And they literally onboarded Desert Island Dicks from that first year of the festival that they then run ad revenue on and bring on their network. And so there was immense value to them for that. And I was like, oh, this is great. And so from that handful of shows in some London pubs and just podcasters going like, yeah, okay, why not? We'll give it a go. Their sort of faith has been brilliant. We've been able to just build it from the ground up. And we say global, but grassroots, it has gone global, but it's still just me and a bunch of very dedicated freelancers, horrifically underpaid, just, going with it and saying, hey, why don't we try it in Australia? Great. Hey, why don't we try it in America? And just, we've got the blueprint there, but just it's built on good faith, because there are festivals out there that have tens of thousands, some of them hundreds of thousands of pounds of seed money or investment from day one. Now, I wouldn't know what to do with 10% of that. We've had to build it from the ground up. And one day it'd be lovely to sell out and be really corporate and to sell it to a massive company and for it to lose all its soul. But for the moment, we quite like having a soul. And it's just this lovely, lovely community that we just grow with, kind of thing. And especially like Trusty Hogs, we sort of almost saw them through a bit of their life cycle. They don't publish anymore, but the first year of the festival were in a 30-seater or 60-seater room, and then all the way to this year, the one just gone, October 2025, they sold out the Clapham Grand, 715 seats, were our headliner, and it was their final ever live show, and it was just such a celebration. And I probably, in press releases, I might claim that we were a part of their growth. We weren't at all, but the fact that they came back every year and were like, yeah, we love what you're doing and building and the fun. We just give them people a platform and as fair a ticket split and as much free stuff as possible and say, look, come join the fun. And I do think that comes from it not being a day job for me, it just sort of running in the side. It means that for better or for worse, we are putting those people and podcasters first and not having to worry about, shit, we need to make a fuck ton of money. Sorry to swear twice in 2 seconds.
No problem at all. No, and go to cheerfulearful.co.uk to learn more for sure. But I would add that the venue is beautiful. The images, as soon as you go to the website, are striking. It's something certainly to aspire to anyone involved in or interested in events. And the last year, as you went through some of the details here, the festival expanded globally, hosting events in Melbourne, London, and New York City across the span of 1 month. Why expand globally and why those cities?
I think the expansion globally also happened with Melbourne because in the UK, I don't know if they'd say the other around, but we love like Australian comedians and comics and what they do and podcasts. We absolutely love them. So you've got people like Do Go On, or Plumbing the Death Star or The Weekly Planet, where they are absolute, like, not even sleeper hits, where, again, not household names. People wouldn't know them. If I said them to my partner, she'd be like, never heard of them. And yet they're doing 100,000, downloads an episode or something ridiculous, So I think that Australia and the UK have very similar senses of humour and embrace silliness, playfulness, Australia more so probably. And I think when I was sort of just digging around, this is, simplifying it, but in Melbourne in particular, such a big, like Sydney is potentially bigger in terms of audio podcast industry, but Melbourne, again, I might get in trouble for saying this, but Melbourne in terms of comedy probably has a more underground, again, grassroots spirit. And so I was digging around and then basically found a potential production partner called Stupid Old Studios. They're now called Humdinger. And what they are, we don't have in the UK. They are a video production company that have a venue built in, that have amazing podcast studios built in, that rent office space to some of Australia's biggest comedians. And I was like, ding. I was like, well, this makes sense. Like, it was a bit of a cheat code. People go, oh, you've expanded. I was like, well, yeah, but I also found in Emma and Evan and Beck and all of the people at Stupid Old Studios, a creative sort of production partner where I was able to go to them a couple of years ago, hey, we've got the blueprint and the energy and the branding, the marketing and a global ticketing deal ready to go. We've got all of that. We can just copy and paste in your amazing space. All I need from you, they do so much more, and again, horrifically underpaid, but all I need from you is to just, rather than me emailing these very popular, very big, Melbourne-based comics, just mention it to them when you're walking past in the corridor, because be the boots on the ground, because people trust who they trust. You email an info at and you get an email from Giles from a faraway festival, or is this real? What's going on? But actually having someone going, no, we're partnering with these guys, we know them, blah, blah, blah. So our first year, 2024 in Melbourne, was just a copy and paste of what we do in the UK, albeit nicer weather. And they're a proper video production company, so all the live stream was brilliant. So it was the sense of humour and I guess my selfish personal love of Australian comedians and comics and their funny formats. I was like, we could do that over there. Let's give it a go. Do work out the ticket splits, blah, blah, blah. Any semblance of profit that I would have made was spent on me just flying over there just to be there like a proud dad. But that's the joy of it. That it was like so fun to see it all in action. And then again, I went again last year in October just for fun, really. They know what they're doing. And it's sort of now will operate onwards in a sort of licensing is a bit of a corporate word, but basically you go build the Cheerful Earful Australia how you want to. If you want to, they said, can we do it over, maybe over 2 weekends or do it when it's better weather, a month in? Yeah, I was like, absolutely. You know your audience better than I do. And I think every podcaster knows it. So build it how you want to. So with Melbourne, and I'm talking too much now, Jeremiah, I'm sorry, editor. With Melbourne, it was a very natural copy, paste, similar identity. With America, that's a much harder nut to crack because you guys are 10 years in the future of the UK in terms of the podcast industry. You've got conferences. When I say you guys, I'm assuming, I know you're an Ibiza boy now, but, let's say, the US is 10 years in the future with conferences and with membership schemes and with live shows and with, it just seems to be supercharged, for some reason. And so I found that a harder nut to crack because you've also got West Coast, East Coast, you've got Nashville with £800 Gorilla. There's so many different markets going on that I had to be a bit more softly, a bit more gentle. And it was just grassroots and speaking to people and friends in the industry like Ariel Nissen Blatt, who everyone loves and knows and who is brilliant, and going, hey, where is a good venue that you would trust in New York City? And Caveat kept coming out, Caveat Theatre in Manhattan. I was like, okay, we reached out to them and they've got a really built-in audience, nerd culture, live shows, 130-seater. I think it's about not over going too ambitious. 130-seater is the exact same capacity as one of our stages in the UK. So it's like, okay, we know how to do that. That's great. And so then October 2025 was our 4th year of the festival. We did, 9 days in the UK, 3-4 days in the US, and then returning to Australia. And so it's about expanding, but safely and gently. But we're able to say to venues, look, here's what we can offer. Global box office partner rather than split box office all over the place. This community, this global community, commercial partners are getting a wider network. It's just an exciting time to be part of that, which we might talk about it later, which is where the awards came from as well. But just New York seemed a buzzy place to go. And, we're speaking... I'm running out of hairline and hair to pull out, but if I still have hair to pull out, we might do somewhere in LA or somewhere in Nashville, or why not Canada? Canada's got a huge comedy footprint, so it's just about, for me, we've got the blueprint ready to go. We've got the branding ready to go. We've got a rebrand coming up soon, not the name, but the logo. We know how we can give the keys to a venue and say, right, have fun with it kind of thing. We don't need to be there. And it's just like, I think that's exciting that it's maybe you'll be able to say to me, but I don't think there is a festival that happens concurrently across multiple territories. That's really exciting to me.
Around the world in less than 80 days, in October.
There you go. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
That's so great. That's really exciting. I love hearing about that. And it's also interesting to hear about the difference between the markets, which I find the international conversation really intriguing. But I wanted to ask you, and you sort of addressed this already, you keep your ticket prices relatively low, which isn't always easy. Why is that important to you, kind of the DNA of Cheerful Earful?
For me, the joy of it, as it says on the website, is that it's a mixture of the household name headliners, the indie favorites, the ones we spoke about, who can sell out 130 seats, within a day of going on sale. But then also those first time performers, particularly in the UK, we open it up, people can apply. We've got a 30 seater, capacity as part of the pub. And it's like a lot of people have done their first ever live show with us. And it's supremely important that we give them the same marketing, hugs, ticket split as anyone else. as anyone else. That's really important to me.
Tickets, how do you keep them low?
I think it is the relationships with the venues and being clever, because if a simple one, if we were to hire the Clapham Grand 3 nights in a row, that would be very expensive, not particularly, but but based on building a relationship with lovely Ali at the Clapham Grand, we're able to do an afternoon at the Clapham Grand where we put on 3 or 4 headline shows as soon back to back as possible, and that is easier to hire. And the cost makes sense because as a festival, we take somewhere between 20 and 25% cut of tickets. So I know that, if those 3 or 4 shows sell decent enough, then the 25% will be enough to cover costs. And we're hiring the Clapham Grand for sort of 6-7 hours of a day or 10 hours rather than 3 nights in a row. So I think it's a, what's it? Do they say a wish and a prayer, or a something in a prayer? And it's a bit of both. There's a decent amount of financial oversight and planning and forecasting, and there's also a bit of finger in the air, creative energy of like, I think this show will sell, and if this show sells 500 tickets at £20 a ticket, and then our 20% can help go towards, venue, all that kind of thing. Plus, with the help of sponsors are very important. Adelicious have supported us since sort of literally day zero. And we've had Pod Shop have come back and supported us. So these sponsors, who I believe were quite affordable, but it just buys that creative breathing space to allow us to then host, especially a week's worth of shows in a venue. I think the key for me is working with venues that are part of the vision, part of what we're building. And so as much as possible, do it on a ticket split rather than doing it on hiring them directly. Because hiring them directly is probably the most business to business. Yes, we'd love to host you, pay us X amount of money, and then you can do what you want to do. Whereas I would rather build a relationship and go, hey, we don't have that sort of cash to immediately throw at this, but we know in a few months' time when tickets are on sale, we will. So why don't we work on a ticket split? And for example, like the US this year, we worked with Caveat and their normal ticket split with Axe, which was, I think, 60-40. As a festival, we did not take a cut to many tickets from the US shows, because I am a believer of there is no point if a show can do a live show with a venue and make more money, why would they do it with the festival kind of thing? So I didn't get involved in the US ones. Similarly with the Clapham Grand, we operate on a festival discount with them, which means that we're able to give a better rate to the live podcasters than if they went to the venue directly. So it's just ways of working with venues like that mean we can try and make it sustainable and then can feed back into it.
You mentioned it earlier before I ask you my selfish questions about the conference I've been dreaming up in Spain. I wanted to ask you about your awards for comedy podcasts, the Golden Lobes, cleverly named. Why an award show? It seems to make a ton of sense to me to pair a festival with an award show, but tell us about that move.
Again, all good ideas come from a good sprinkling of childhood trauma. And I think that, again, I realised in adult life, actually, I don't have big ears. I've just got big lobes. And then, so childhood trauma, bullied, great, size of my lobes, great, ha, ha, ha. And then I have, as many people have, it with radio, have been to loads and loads of like awards ceremonies and had that, spent hours editing a 15-minute entry, submitted it, paid your £40 or whatever per category. You get nominated, you go to the awards night and, spend half your sort of rent or mortgage to attend. You win nothing. And you think, was that fun? Was that a good? So I wanted to, try and pop the bubble or pop the balloon of cynical awards. And I think that with our network of comedy podcasts and funny people and entertaining people, that we have a big enough, network to get involved. I wanted to build an awards from to put it delicately, I wanted to give a middle finger to the industry and go, do you know what, you can do this, you can, and it doesn't have to cost an arm and a leg. And so the amazing Theo at Pod Life Events, who are our global ticketing partner with the festival, with Cheerful Earful, I said to him, do you think you could change the back end of your website to be an awards platform? Because all other awards platform software costs $5,000 annually, and I can't afford that. And he was like, give me a week. And then he came back in a week, and this was like November. And he was like, yeah, I think I can do that. And by February, we were launching the awards. So the whole point of the Golden Lobes is to be affordable. So it's £25 all in, not per category. You can enter as many categories as you want for £25, so about $30. Accessible, so it's across all genres. So whether it's Raised to Smile or a Giggle, it can be the most boring business podcast, but if you've got a best blooper or a best tangent or whatever, there's an award for you. And it's fun, not faff, we say, because I remember editing for hours, editing an awards entry, distracting from my day job of actually making podcasts just to put together an awards entry. And I was like, is this good? Are we meant to be doing this in the industry? So it's 5 minutes of audio max, unless it's the big one, which is 10 minutes, but it's 5 minutes. If it's just one clip rather than a montage, great. And so we just say fun, not faff. Chuck us your best bits. We say show off your best bits. Get involved in the most sort of joyous night in joyous awards night in podcasting. We did it for the first time. Like I said, it was November 2024 that the mad idea came to me at 3 a.m. Theo a week later said, I'm pretty sure I could build something from the ground up. Do you have any money? And I went, no, but do you want to do it anyway? He went, yes, fine. And then we launched it in February, and then had May 2025, the first ever Golden Lobes. The awards night itself is, whilst it is prestigious for the winners, they get a proper beautiful sort of hand-designed award, and they get digital artwork, and they get over £5,000 worth of studio time and giveaways and loads of free stuff. That's all prestigious and real, but the awards night itself is a bit of a piss take of awards. It's a cabaret show, it's a comedy show, it's cameos from comedians, it's a bit mad. And so we had a lot of fun last year. We're doing it again this year. I'm not sure when this is going live, but we've got early bird open now, and then we'll do it again. And it's just a really nice, from a business point of view, it provides a nice sort of offset or seesaw to the festival in, let's say, Q4, October, just about, and then the awards in May, Q2, and they just feed into each other. Once we finish the festival, we can talk about the awards.
Sure, yeah. What's the date this year?
It's Wednesday, May 6th. Again, happening at the Clapham
Maybe I'll
Brand.
come. I would love to be there.
We'd love that as well. And we are working on, and chatting with I won't say who, but people in the US about, we might manage it this year, we might not, we'll see. I want to, because I'm a bit mad, but having a basically live US watch along where it's hosted, and all of the nominees in the US can come along to a party, and we have comedians hosting it, and then it's a live stream, maybe even a live link. And last year we had quite a few US entries, but for the nominees we weren't able to show them. For the nominees, we weren't able to show them the same amount of love as we would like to, being just UK based. So we're just seeing how we can have like a Eurovision or Live Aid style thing where it's happening at the same time. So not Golden Lobes US on a different date, but happening concurrently. So 4 p.m. in the US whilst it's happening 9 p.m. in the UK. That's what I'd love to do this year. We'll see if we run out of road and run out of money, but that's what the aim is. But it's just such a fun, silly evening, and it's great to see people get involved in that.
This is wonderful. Thank you so much for breaking down like how you've built all of this. I know you're a humble guy, and I love self-deprecating humor, so it's right up my alley. But
hey, it's good to have therapy. It's cheaper than therapy, Jeremiah. It's great.
Cheerful. You should tell that to my therapist, and actually multiple therapists that I employ. Yeah. But Golden Lobes, Cheerful Earful, all these different projects are super inspiring to me. As I mentioned, I am dreaming up this podcast conference concept in Ibiza, and I'll continue to take some pointers and some notes from this conversation. I'd really love to meet you in person, so I look forward to the next chance to do that. But good luck on everything, and congrats on all your success. I'm just going to wrap up the episode here by thanking the listeners. Thank you for listening to this episode of Your Next Chapter. I'm your host, JT. Jeremiah Tittle. Our executive producer is Emily Reeves. This is edited by Justin Cortese, and we drop episodes every other week, bi-weekly. Please follow the show, and thanks so much for listening.